Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to both of our witnesses for being here today to answer our questions as we start this important study. I guess I'd just like to start with something that I think is in all of our minds right now, and that's the recent rail blockades that we've been seeing across the country. Could you just provide some information on the economic impact that that's had for the sector?
Yes, you're right. We were tracking this on a daily basis, the impact on each of our natural resource sectors, working closely with Forest Products Association of Canada. I'll ask Jeff if he can speak to the dollar amount, but there was a significant financial impact to some of our mills, both pulp and paper mills and lumber yards across the country.
Yeah, just in terms of the impact to the mills themselves, there was one mill that ended up shutting down in Quebec in one of the Resolute companies. In addition, what we heard was a number of anecdotal pieces of information from mills indicating that when the trains were coming up, there weren't any empty cars that were available to them. This was creating a concern in terms of inventory. They need to be able to move their inventory in order to be able to make use of it. And so there was other examples such as that, but it was only the one mill that we're aware of that ended up having to curtail temporarily.
Okay, and so you can't really put a dollar figure on it at this point. Is that correct in saying?
Not at this point, no.
Okay. Yeah. In terms of data, as I understand, some of the most recent data is from 2017 in the Natural Resources Canada for the forest sector. But economic circumstances have been changing, whether it's with softwood disputes or many different factors, and I've seen that in my own writing with the closure of Kenora Forest Products. I was just wondering if you have any more recent data, particularly for mill closures.
We track on a daily, weekly basis at NRCan with our network across the country. I don't have the stats in front of me, but we have, I believe, 6 or 7 mill closures in British Columbia affecting approximately 10,500 employees. Northern Pulp in Nova Scotia, there will be a significant impact along the integrated value chain there. We can certainly get back to the committee with the details of all the mills, both temporary and permanent curtailments that have occurred coast to coast.
I think that'd be great if we could get the committee to understand that and have that in front of them. And if I could just sort of ask a follow-up to that, do you have any information, again, maybe not in front of you, but in terms of gross domestic product and with the exports specifically?
The latest information that we have on GDP and export is from 2018, so it is still a bit dated. And what we do is we update this information on an annual basis. So this year for 2020, we'll be looking to update the information for 2019. So for 2018, though, gross domestic product came in at $25.8 billion in GDP. In terms of exports, there was $33 billion in exports, which represents about 6% of Canada's total exports capacity.
Okay. Thank you. I'll change gears slightly here just to something that I've been hearing a lot in my writing and meetings with different stakeholders, and that is the government's current plan to prohibit development of 25% of Canada's land by 2025. And I've previously asked the Minister of Natural Resources if he could confirm whether or not this plan is going to impact areas that are accessible for forest harvest, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get an answer, so I will ask if it's possible if you can confirm that.
As you know, the mandate letter commitment belongs to Minister Wilkinson of Environment and Climate Change Canada, so I would leave it to my colleagues at Environment Climate Change Canada to appear to answer the question as to how they'll roll out the implementation plan to achieve 25% protected areas by 2025.
Okay, but is NRCan doing any economic analysis on any of those proposed lands
at this point? I would say a good example of that is the work we've done both on protected spaces and species in British Columbia. Because we have the industry intelligence and the relationship with the industry in all parts of the country, our economic analysis division really works hand in glove with Environment and Climate Change Canada to get a very good assessment on what impacts will be on the sector at the worker, community, and industry level when something is proposed.
Okay, thank you. Is that information that would also be able to be shared with the committee members?
Not at this time.
Okay. 1 minute. I'll stick with the trees and with the environmental theme I have here, and that's with the 2 billion tree promise. And one question we've been hearing very often is if there's been an analysis on if any of these trees will be included in the allowable cut.
That's a good question. As you know, first of all, we're doing our own analysis on what it would take to operationalize 2 billion trees. It is incremental, so over and above the existing forest cover that exists in Canada today. I would say that Canada is a world leader in the sustainable management of our forest. And if it happens to be in areas, for instance, that have been disturbed by wildland fire or pests such as a mountain pine beetle, that does qualify as incremental. Because in Canada, if you cut a tree, if you harvest a tree, you have to replace it, but not if it's destroyed by insects or by fire. So in 60 or 70 years down the road, there may be a harvesting and a renewal by law